Today we are going to be working on lesson 2.2 and it is going to be on dividing fractions. This is page 64 of your Big Ideas textbook. Our purpose today is to learn the steps for dividing fractions so we can apply this skill to real-world situations. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about today is the word invert. And when you invert something, it simply means you're turning it over. So the picture here we have is of a glass, and when you invert it, you're simply flipping it over. We're actually going to be doing that exact same thing with the fractions that we work with today. Okay, the only difference is that when we're talking about fractions, we call it reciprocals. Okay, so two numbers whose product is 1 are reciprocals. To write the reciprocal of a number, write the number as a fraction, then invert the fraction. So the reciprocal of the fraction, if I had the fraction a over b, it would be changing it to b over a. Now, when we're doing reciprocals, none of our numbers can be 0. So when you're doing this, remember, you cannot have a 0 as one of your numbers. Now, I want to just quickly show you what I mean by this as we're talking about it. So first of all, let's say I had the number 4. If the first step is to turn it into a fraction, and to take any whole number and turn it into a fraction, you just make your fraction bar and put a 1 underneath it. So 4 is the exact same value as 4 over 1. If I wanted to find the reciprocal of it, all that I'm going to do is flip the numerator and the denominator. So the opposite of 4 over 1 is 1 over 4. Now, anytime you multiply reciprocals, you are always going to get a product of 1 or an answer of 1. So if I were to multiply this, I have 4 times 1, which is 4, and 1 times 4, which is also 4. And as you already know, anytime the numerator and denominator are the same number, it does reduce to 1. So our key idea today with dividing fractions is to divide a number by a fraction, multiply the number by the reciprocal of the fraction. So here they are showing us in numbers. We have 1/5 divided by 3/4. If I wanted to actually find the answer to this, I keep the first number the same, 1/5. I change the division sign to multiplication and flip over or invert or use the reciprocal of 3/4, which is 4/3. So my new math problem is actually 1/5 times 4/3. And here they've rewritten it. They just use the same fraction bar. It doesn't make any difference. Our first example right here is the same as the second. Now, we're not going to worry about the algebra example right now. When we get to chapter 3, we will be talking about algebra. Okay, now what I want you to do right now is to please take a few notes as I'm talking to you about dividing fractions. The heading on your notes should be dividing fractions, and if you need to pause this video to write your notes, please do so. So there are actually only 3 steps when you're dividing fractions. Just 3 things you need to do. And by the way, when I'm talking about fractions at this time, I am not talking about mixed numbers. A mixed number, remember, is when you have a whole number combined with a fraction. I am only at this time talking about fractions, no whole number with it. So step 1 of dividing fractions is keep it. The first number in a multiplication sentence, or excuse me, in a division problem, you're going to keep. So for example, if I had the problem 2/3 divided by 1/4, it means this first number, 2/3, I am going to keep it. Nothing changes. Step 2 is change it. So my symbol here where I have a divide, I'm actually going to change my divide to multiply. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite my 2/3. Okay, and step 3 is flip it. So my 1/4 at the end right here, I'm actually going to flip it over. So instead of 1/4, I'm going to use the reciprocal, which is 4/1. Now I have a multiplication sentence, and we've already practiced multiplication of fractions. So 2 times 4 is 8. 3 times 1 is 3. So my answer is 8/3. Now, one thing I'm going to tell you about this, though, is we don't ever want to leave a fraction improper. Think of it this way. If you were talking about your height, you wouldn't say I'm 5 foot 15 inches tall. I would say 6 foot 3 inches. So kind of the same thing with a fraction. You need to make it proper again. And the way we do that is take the numerator, which is 8. I've already talked to you that a fraction bar simply means divide. So 8 divided by 3, that's all you do. So 3 can go into 8 2 times. I subtract, and I have 2 left over. So the answer I need to write as a fraction. The whole number is 2, and I have a remainder of 2/3.